Hey, Matthew, good morning for me.
Hey, Reed, it is awesome to see you. So, good afternoon from here in warm, sticky, but not smoky upstate New York.
Yeah, definitely not smoking. We've definitely, unfortunately, had a bit of smoke recently here in Washington. So yeah, it's
Well, we're
caused me to
happy to
pop up my
see
air
the
conditioner.
Quebec smoke pass us by. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you guys had a lot of it though, quite a bit earlier as well, right?
yeah, yeah. So, we, like having lived in Seattle until last summer for over a decade, we got to see the smoke season arrive there. And we're very sad to see it chase us here. But right now, it's just a beautiful summer, and happy to join you and everybody in chat as well. So, see some familiar faces joining the call.
Yes, quite a few people already in the chat, and I mean, it's a topic that I'm pretty interested in having a conversation with you on today. For the fact that when we were talking at Sequel Saturday, New York, I heard a lot of really good things from you regarding some of the reactions that people had to the soft skills conversations, and I think you really helped give people a spark on what they could do with their career and just the journey through life, and the fact that I think a lot of people, to a degree, look to individuals that are known in the community as like always having all their ducks in a row, so to speak. And it's nice to hear sometimes that like, oh no, there's a bit of stumbling to success to agree with certain stuff, and not always
Yeah.
knowing a full path and plan. So it's nice to um, be able to tackle that, and also just speak to how we've navigated that path.
Well, yeah, Sequel Saturday New York back at the beginning of May was the second time that I delivered that unplanned career talk. And the reason why I wanted to put this together, like basically the reason that I had tried to come up with things out as I went approach to life, was because more and more of the people that I was so many people at so many different places of their career, and a lot of the questions that I saw and a lot of the concerns that I saw were both familiar and things that I had struggled with or fought with myself. And like I'm perhaps not a young man anymore, so being like the couple people have described me as the elder statesman of the Power BI community, like being in a position where I can reflect and look back, thought there might be something that I could share. And as you saw in New York, it was a pretty well received talk.
Absolutely. And Alexi says, unfortunately now, I hate the fact that I'm in a place with Comcast and I'm getting a little bit of a hiccup I'm noticing from people. So I want to see if there's anything I can just quickly do to fix this. Otherwise, it's kind of one of those, you cross your fingers to the stream gods and you just hope that the internet
Yeah.
unblips itself. Because I can't really, sadly, reset a router in the middle of a stream. When you pay for gigabit and you get 1 megabyte down, it's the best thing. Okay. All right. Well, let me refresh this page. Because it's basically buffering right now on the cats are always great as a distraction, though.
It's the reason I joined the cat team in the first place. And then I realized that it was actually stood for customer advisory team, and I needed to bring my own cats. But all in all, I have no complaints.
I will say it looks like they are saying it's better. The video's a little pixelated, but as long as they can hear us, I think that's the important part. Why don't we start with a little bit of a background of yourself? So you are on the cat team at Microsoft. You were actually you were the first stream that I actually did back in November of 2021. But what has been your role that's kind of led you up to this point? I know we're going to get into some of this, but as a quick little just summary, as an introduction of kind of who you are today, if you want to start from there.
Yeah, so I started off my tech career in the mid-90s as a technical trainer. So if you remember, New Horizons Computer Learning Center used to be a big franchise-based business. I think that there are still a few out there, but many fewer than there were in the 90s. But basically, I started off doing applications training, like Windows for Workgroups and Windows 95, Excel, or Access. You would send your business team in, and they would basically learn how to like format a document or be more productive using the brand new Windows 95. And even though like I'd never been comfortable as a public speaker, you know, I loved computers, sort of fell in love with programming back when I was in my tweens, and I was good at it. So explaining things, answering questions, like being in the moment to help people figure out their stuff was something that I enjoyed and that the role needed. And to sort of fast forward from there, the training center needed a Microsoft certified trainer. So I and getting certified on Windows NT, on SQL Server 6.5, and like I think VB6 or VB5 from a development perspective. So started getting certifications and teaching the 5-day technical training classes. Moved from being more of a trainer to being more of a consultant. So started doing more hands-on work, ended up going solo back in the early 2000s. So started my own consulting business, did a few other things related to that, ended up becoming a Microsoft MVP for SQL Server integration services. And then in 2008, joined Microsoft as an employee, working for their learning group. Since I'd remained as a Microsoft certified trainer up until then, I basically joined the part of Microsoft that produced the training and certification content, helping them improve the quality of their technical training courseware overall. After 3 years on the learning team, I joined the product team. And this is going to go back to Jake's question in chat at some point. But basically joined the product team, joining the SQL Server Integration Services PM team right before we shipped SQL Server 2012. Did a couple like integration services, master data services, data quality services, Power BI for Office 365. If anybody remembers back when Power BI was a bunch of add-ins for Excel and a SharePoint-based service on the back end. And then when Power BI went in the direction that we know it and love it today, I went in another direction, joining the Azure Data Catalog team, or what became the Azure Data Catalog team. And then in 2018, a little bit over 5 years ago, came back to Power BI and joined what was then the Power BI Cat team, which earlier this year, like last month, we branded or restructured as the Fabric Cat team, as we're focusing on the broader Fabric platform. So like that's 28 years in 2 minutes.
And I think, I mean, as we'll get into in this chat, I see your video clearing up a bit, so I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed that it's slowly just updating itself. But I do think that there's been some really interesting initiatives, especially when you've done a really good job of being able to hear and listen to the voice, not only at the corporate level, but the individual level. And I would say that's actually one of the things that I just, as a compliment to you, you're a really good listener to, and you're able to like pick up on a lot of subtext on stuff. And I think that's benefited you really well in your career. But I also don't want to get too far ahead. Just I'm sure some things we'll talk about. But I love the kind of the paths that you've taken, and I think also the fact that you forged some yourself on top of, it's not only just finding the direct path to it, but it's carving your own way to a degree, the trailblazer in a sense.
So I want to be transparent and honest here, both with you and with myself. Most of the times when I have made a significant career change, I was running from something, not running to something. Like most of the people that describe themselves as thought leaders are insufferable douchebags who are full of themselves. Like I am, if anything, a thought follower. So there's and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but for most of those changes, where I ended up blazing a new career, it's not that I was looking for the new thing. It's that the place where I was at in the moment was intolerable or insufficient for one reason or another, and the cost of not changing ended up being greater than the perceived cost or the fear of changing. So, like, definitely don't want anyone to think that I set out to blaze a trail. I just sometimes found myself in a place where not a lot of people had gone before.
And I think to a degree, defining your own destiny, as cliche as that sounds, in a lot of ways helps to really add meaning to your life, right? Yeah, absolutely. But I think those are all great conversations that kind of leads up into that idea that you had this, what is it, a long-term career with a short-term plan, and I think there's a lot of fun insights along the way with that. So and I do know we have a great quote and some slides to speak to those, but I also want to keep this very conversational throughout all of it, and people with it in the chat to be able to drop questions and comments into there. So if you want, we can kind of get started on the topic and just explore this conversation together.
Yeah. So I think the thing that seems most significant to me. So I'm going to drop. Yeah. So there we go. So I put together a deck. I will drop a link at some point into chat because the first time that I delivered this talk at SQL Saturday Atlanta, I recorded it and it's up on my not very active YouTube channel. But the thing that I wanted to do for the Unplanned Career Talk was basically to have a conversation or a story that more people could relate to, and basically to share as much information as I was comfortable sharing, so that people could see the choices I'd made, the choices that were made for me, the mistakes that I'd made, and so that they could see in their own lives the patterns that came out of this, or the patterns that they could relate to. Because very often, as humans, it's the stories that make the most sense. And since this is PowerPoint, and I'm not going to do anything significant here, but basically, at the end of the talk, I wanted to summarize things, because a story like this is all good if anybody cares about Matthew, but most people don't really. Instead, I wanted to summarize with what to me felt like the lessons that if I'd been paying attention at the time, I would have learned at the time. But realistically, you're living in the moment. Life is the mosh pit where you're getting violently thrown back and forth by forces that are bigger than you are. But the lessons that fell out for me when I finally took the time to reflect and look back, this might be a good place to start. And Reed, I'm going to rely on you to keep this from turning into a talk. I don't want to do a bit because I already did the bit and it's recorded. But the thing that is so awesome for me in my current role is the fact that I am in a place where the things that I love to do and the things that I'm good at are exactly what my team and my org needs. And I have both a manager and a leadership chain that values them, that recognizes them and rewards them. And it finally feels like I figured my shit out. Like for most of my career, it really felt like I was just doing the thing that I was doing. And very often in my career at Microsoft, I felt like I just never figured out what was needed for me. Like what I needed to do to succeed and thrive and get promoted and like build a career. And and now that I'm in a place where the things that I am great at are what I need to do, I can look back and say, like, this is the thing that was missing from so many other places in my life. And that the thing, like the advice, if I put on my grandfather hat, because remember, this is grandfather Matthew telling his story. If I could go back to tell my younger self any one thing, it would be this: to go out of your way to find the place where the thing that is needed is you, because the only thing that you are ever going to be the best at in the world is being you. Like there is no one else. Like this is for you individually. Yes, you watching the stream. Like there's nobody who's a better version of you than you are. And if you're trying to twist yourself to be the thing that you think that the team needs, like this might be necessary and might be useful in the short term, but eventually the only way that you're truly going to thrive and realize your true potential is to be in a place or to make a place where what is needed is you. And there's a member of my team, so I'm not going to name him, but his initials are Alex. There's this guy in my team named Alex, who is like absolutely incredible. Like he is so strong in places where I am weak, and he complements the things that I need. Like he's doing things that I couldn't do, building on the things that I did do. And one of the things that has become part of our interpersonal vocabulary is the idea of being like the best Alex that you can be. Stop trying to be a dime store Matthew and instead be like the best freaking authentic Alex possible. And this is like, if there's any advice that's generalizable, I think that it's this. Like be the most awesome, authentic, impactful version of yourself. And if this isn't what your current team needs, like obviously you can't always be jumping ship. You can't always be chasing the next thing. Sometimes you need to like put your nose to the grindstone and get the work done. But if the work that needs to get done doesn't give you joy, doesn't give you energy, if you're not being recognized for it, if you're just not good at it, then maybe it's time to look for a different role, a different position, a different team that can be that home where what they need is who you are and what you are.
Oh, and there's a phrase that I always remembered from the show, Dirty Jobs, that I actually liked Mike Rowe's description on. Is if you constantly look for a job that that will have passion for you, you're never going to find that.
Yeah.
You need to bring passion to your job. So it's bringing you into the organization to a degree, and like value to a degree doesn't exist outside of what you ascribe to it. So you have to kind of make your own way for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to play devil's advocate a little bit as well. So like I want to recognize the truth in that statement. But like, for example, in a one of my previous roles at Microsoft, I tried to bring the passion, I tried to bring that authentic me, and the leader of the org that I was in, like he freaking hated me. Like the thing that I had to bring, like that was not what or who he wanted. And like bringing like all the passion in the world isn't going to help you if the place where you are doesn't value those things. Like if you're bringing you and what they need is something else or someone else, like no amount of energy and passion is going to get you over that hump.
Agreed. Completely agreed. Yeah. I did have, and actually I'll just pull this up here from Matthias. I already had one question. So at what point in your career is the, and I'm actually trying to read the question. Can you interpret that?
Yep. So at what point in your career is it clever to chain your career
Ah,
completely to one data ecosystem like Microsoft? And
there you go.
I'm going to say either right now or never. Um, so
So it depends.
I hate that phrase. So like every
Yeah,
time Patrick says it and they put money in the jar, I roll my eyes.
yeah,
Um, but the thing that it depends on is your goals and what is needed for you. So I'm gonna project a little into the context behind the question, keeping in mind that I only know Matthias from his participation in the Guy in a Cube stream. So I don't know anything about the real context. But if you are a consultant, like a systems integrator or software developer that needs to deliver solutions for your clients, and your income is a function of those clients paying you to build the things that they need, like the ecosystem that you need to build for yourself needs to support what your clients need you to deliver. Like for me, I had a really easy choice because when I had the chance to jump from being an apps trainer to a technical trainer, they basically said we can either like train you to be a certified netware instructor, like who remembers netware, like Novell netware, no one, or a Microsoft certified trainer. And I chose MCT because this was where I thought the money was going to be in the moment. And for the rest of my career,
yeah.
like focusing on VB, .NET, SQL, the broader like growing Microsoft data platform, there was never a time when I needed to build something or build on top of something built in a third party tools. So for me, I never needed to make that choice. But if I think about today, like the data platform ecosystem is so much more diverse today with open source tools like MySQL or Postgres, Terraform, Bicep. Like there's like all of these data engineering or database or similar tools that are out there. And the only reason, like in my mind, the only reason to take a single platform approach is if it makes sense for the goals that you've set for yourself, like making money, like paying to put food on your family's table, like this is an important thing. That's probably the most important variable. And then the second one is like from where you are, what touches it? What can you see for that next step? I would assume that if like for some reason I got fired today, someone is watching, it's like this guy can't represent me. Like my next role would be focused on the Microsoft data platform, but that's not because it's better, it's right, or anything like that. It's because it's what I know. But from that starting point, if there was the chance like to focus more or to branch out into other directions, always keep your eyes open. Like those doors are there waiting for you to walk through them if they make sense. And even if you do specialize in one given area, like think about your expertise as a circle. The edges of the circle are touching the things that you don't have expertise in, but which you do have awareness of. The more you work, the more you learn, the larger the circle gets, the more things that you come into contact with. And like if you are in a consultant or consultant like role, the next time that someone is looking for expertise in an area that is adjacent to yours, like if it sounds interesting, if it sounds like an opportunity that makes sense, go for it. And you will learn through that opportunity, and now your expertise is bigger.
Well, and I think to a degree, a lot of the context of like what to learn and where is really going to be dependent
Yeah.
on what the organization does or could use to a large significance. I forget the exact name of it, but there's that like diagram of like learning and growth, which is there's
Yeah.
what things that are too far outside of that circle that they to a degree, like the level of stress becomes too much to learn, but there's this Goldilocks little edge to it, or area that falls in the healthy growth area, where you can just expand a little bit. It's still familiar enough that you can move outwards, but it's not as much as, let's say, pivoting from being a fisherman into to going into data analytics, which people still do, but that's obviously a much bigger leap between those two, versus just slowly adding and building rooms to your house, a piece at a time, as you continue to do those developments. And I've actually found, just as like, for people who wanting to do continued learning, my big thing is you have to schedule time to do that. Like, so I actually have reserved on my calendar every Friday from 1 to 4, 1 to 5. That's my time. Like, nobody's allowed to put any meetings on my calendar for that. Outlook actually recommends that now. There's that new little whatever Viva Insights thing that's, I'm sure ChatGPT will replace soon. But at one point it said, I notice your calendar is kind of busy today. Would you like me to reserve some time for yourself on your calendar? Like, I like that it's doing that now, because people, if you always think you'll have time, you probably won't ever actually find the time. Calendars have a tendency to get filled up very easily. So making conscious effort to set time aside to learn whatever you want to do, I think, is very important for anyone who actually does want to continue to find time for personal development, learning, or growth.
So can I riff on two things that you said?
Sure.
So one of them, you talked about like going from being a fisherman to being a data analyst or something along those lines. One of the things that I have seen in my personal career that I do believe is generalizable is that each of those unique earlier places where you have been, this is part of your career superpower. So that the person who's been on the boat, like doing the nets, like whatever it is that fishermen do, that I have no idea, but that person is going to bring a nuanced personal expertise to any of the data analytics related to fish, boats, water, climate, waves. Like, there's all of these things that you are learning organically. So Pa Beater is like, he went from being an electrical engineer to a data analyst. Most of the people that I know who are professional data scientists today, like doing truly hardcore data science work, they started off in some business domain, whether it was like manufacturing or food science or pharmaceuticals or whatever. And that domain expertise is the thing that you cannot truly learn from a book. Like, you can't watch a YouTube video to learn what it's like on a fishing boat. But if you've got that, this is what you build on. And like, for me, I mentioned this in passing at the beginning. The first round of courses that I taught was like Windows NT administration and networking, like NT 4.0. And I loved TCP/IP. There was something about the networking side of things that like really hit all of my endorphin buttons. And as I went from being a trainer and a person with networking focus to being much more dev and database centric, like, nobody on my dev teams understood anything about networking or DNS. So anytime that there was like routing challenges, connectivity challenges, like the ever-present DNS challenges, because it's always DNS, I was the only person that could solve those. This was the thing that helped me increase my billing rate once I was solo and consistently demonstrate value to whatever team I was on. It wasn't the things that I knew from what I was doing now. It was the entire set of those things. And there's like a question from Power Egg in chat, like, besides as soon as possible, at what age do you reckon you should find this place, like this, find the home? Like, there's never a right or wrong time to take that next step. Like, for me, I found it in my 50s. So it's like, it was a long journey as I was stumbling through this whole thing. But for this lesson, this is a photo from my 50th birthday bear pit at my sword fighting club in Seattle. So while I was in my mid 40s, I discovered that like full contact longsword combat was a thing. Like there are people who will fight with blunt steel weapons, modern protective gear, like practicing and studying these medieval manuscripts that have survived for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like this is a thing that people do. When I learned this, like there was absolutely no way I was not going to do this. It was a dumb thing to start a combat sport in your 40s, but I literally never questioned that this was a thing that I would do. I saw a video on YouTube. I searched for HEMA, or historical European martial arts. Like I learned the term. I Googled Seattle HEMA. Not at all like LARPing, paw beater. So no, does it depend? No. I found a club. I was literally at practice the next night. And for my 50th birthday, I fought 50 consecutive 1-round matches. Like all the other people from my club and neighboring clubs, like they basically got in a line, they got to rest. And for me, it was just fight, 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 fight. Like, holy crap. It's never too late. It's never too early. Like, do the thing that gives you joy now, because that's how you keep moving in the direction that will get you closer to the place where you need to be. But I don't think there's any wrong or right age.
I mean, as long as you're still breathing and your brain still works, like, yeah, there's never, like the phrase, like teaching an old dog new tricks is one of those that I hate to a degree. Yeah. Like it's there. You know, we are complex beings. We have neuroplasticity until the day we die. We can, you know, like granted, I can probably not pick up a new language as fast as I could when I was 5, but I can still pick up a new language if I put enough time and effort into it.
And realistically, once you know SQL, what other languages do you need to learn?
Exactly. No. VBA. VBA is the only language you need to know.
Sure. Fair enough. Touche.
Oh no, I actually for a second there I thought the person at the bottom, when I was looking at that behind the mask, I was like, is that Charles or Chuck? Because his eyes reminded me a little bit of him.
That is not. That is Aiden.
Yeah, because I first saw this before I noticed the other equipment. I'm like, was that a fishing trip? Oh no, this is the sparring.
So
you did say fish, yeah.
So we'll do. Mm-hmm. There we go. So they say self-service business intelligence is a two-edged sword. This is that sword.
I mean, I would also say like similar parallels to one of the reasons that you went into certain career paths earlier on. Yeah. I mean, that's the entire reason I even went into data analysis initially too, is I was to a degree chasing the money. I interviewed for a technical account manager position at Microsoft in Texas of all places, which even the interviewers are like, why did we fly you down to Texas when you lived in Seattle? We could have interviewed you here with all the other recruits. But one of the advisors like, you know, I love your personality. You just don't have enough tech background, you know, so maybe get a technical certification. And Googling fastest growing, you know, sub industries within tech, and data analytics was kind of the little rocket ship taking off, and you know, basically just dove into it, but never really had worked with Excel or anything before, but it became something I really liked, and it was kind of a bring passenger job kind of a thing. Plus, I just like solving puzzles, and when two pieces that are never really designed to fit together, and you have to make them fit together yourself, because they're almost like they morph and change shape as you try to assemble them. Like that's to me what data is to a large degree when you're building a model. So that's actually why I really like data analytics. Is I get to put the puzzle pieces together myself, but I also get to cut the shape of the puzzle pieces that I'm putting together. Yeah,
no, I love it, and I absolutely feel, and I just looked at the YouTube window. Is my video really 30 seconds behind? Are we lagging that much?
We shouldn't be. We're like 3 to 5 seconds behind. But like the video that I'm grabbing from you is in live, so what all of our video collectively goes up at the same rate.
All right, I'll stop looking at the YouTube stream then. So we'll stop breaking that wall. But the thing that I hear you describing with the puzzle pieces and solving those problems, like this is the joy that working with data gives me. I still remember that very first querying with SQL Server 6.0 or 6.5 class that I attended. like the first time working with a data-centric language, the first time working with that relational model. And it was joy. It was like hearing a beautiful song, or watching like your favorite movie for the first time. Like that's what it felt like. And like the money's great, but the joy, the joy gives you energy and makes it all worthwhile.
And there's a large part of almost like a bit of the OCD in my brain. Like if I'm given a report that needs to be cleaned up, it's almost like walking into a messy room and getting to pick it up to a degree. Being able to reorganize something and delete the cobwebs and just polish it up into like a better version of itself there's a bit of satisfaction, at least for me, in that. So like it actually is enjoyable. And then my artistic side gets to make the pretty things like the visuals and everything else, but digressions.
Yeah. So I've switched to one of the other summary lessons from my from my little deck, since you're still sharing the screen. But the things that you're talking about like taking the messy things and making them organized and so on, like this was what I loved about the retail, like the dead end retail job that I worked for 10 years. So like I got my tech career started much later than I might have. So even though I was a computer science major when I started college, like I discovered sex and drugs and rock and roll, like when I was like in my second year of college, and I failed out of multiple colleges multiple times, never ended up with a degree. And the fact that I ended up in tech, again, that's like, it's a random thing. So my wife, who we just married, she was getting her master's degree at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. I was along for the ride. Like I figured I'd get a job at Walgreens, or, like I've done retail. I know how to stock shelves. I can do this thing and bring in some minimum wage while the wife is learning, like the interesting, high paying technical science stuff. But the data warehousing that I love in my present life, this is all like the abstract version of the literal data warehousing that I did 30 years ago. Like you've got the warehouse to start with, like it's truck day, and you're going to have 22 pallets of all of this other stuff, and some things need to go over here because there's going to be a ton of them for the sale that starts in a week and a half. Other things are going to go right out to the shelf. Like there's this dance of hot data, warm data, cold data, like the physical logistics. Like how are you going to prep things to make room for 22 new pallets when you've already got like the first month's worth of Christmas merchandise that you can't put out for another 6 weeks? Like all the things that you need to bring together to make the warehouse work are very, very similar to the things that you need to bring together to have a data warehouse. Like even though it's bits instead of boxes, the parallels are the same, and the whole customer centricity, the empathy that you build. Like if part of your job is helping the old lady who comes into the drugstore find the things that's on sale, and maybe being there to listen to her because she doesn't have anyone to listen to her, at home. Like these things are a key part of the foundation that I built on for my tech career, even though they're not technical at all. They still, they're part of who I am because they're part of that journey, like that unique journey that I stumbled along.
I like your analogy with like a literal physical store organization in terms of your hot, medium, and cold products into data. Because I mean, there's a lot of analogies between many different industries if you know where to look for them.
Yeah. And to be fair, I see analogies everywhere, so not everybody follows all of them. So it might be a weak connection, but for this one, like they call it data warehousing for a reason, because the patterns are so true. I just don't know how many people have done both physical warehousing and logical data warehousing.
Yeah, I mean, like. And I just was just noticing also that Data is King is actually getting a master's in data analytics as well. So congrats on that.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually didn't realize that you had failed through, I guess, a couple of colleges. And I think it continues. Well, I want to emphasize on that. I mean, I think the
Yeah,
industry is also realizing more and more that like bachelor's and master's degrees have their place. They are very useful. And if you actually
yeah,
go into data science, like to a degree, really deep level type of work versus like analytics is good, it's important, but science is on a whole another level above it when you get into ML stuff. And that does require
yeah,
time and usually classes. But I
yeah,
think a lot of the skills that people innately have that can make them successful in careers. I've noticed the large companies like Microsoft and Google and others are realizing
yeah,
that you don't need a 6-year degree
yeah.
to prove that. It's like a
Yep.
a technical degree with just enough base knowledge to let you be trained on the job. I think they're hiring more and more people with those just because they realize that they can kind of like the growth does not have to happen at university. It can happen within the organization.
Yes. So I definitely agree. I want to respond to Data is King. He says, I failed calculus twice. It's been a long journey. I loved Calc 2 so much, I took it 3 times. So I'm
Nice.
absolutely with you there. And like for anyone who is getting value from like a traditional education, like I still think about going back and getting a degree. I will probably never do it because the ROI is not going to be there. I would only
Yes.
do it because it's a thing that I started and failed at, and I hate that.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's doing it, like it's awesome. It will definitely open doors that not having a degree won't open. But if I think back to the 90s, so this is going back to Albuquerque, leading up to the dot-com boom. Uh, like at one point, I co-founded a consulting startup. Like I was one of 3 co-founders and like a managing principal consultant, some nonsense. Like job titles mean absolutely nothing if you get to set them yourself, and most other times as well. But we couldn't hire the people that we needed. Like there was like during the dot-com boom, anybody that knew HTML, like this brand new webby stuff. They were very expensive, so it was very hard to recruit to hire. So we're working with all of these staffing companies, these headhunters. And they're like, oh, we've got this great person. He's got a bachelor's in this, and she's got a master's in that. And we brought in staff developers to help us who looked great on paper, but they just couldn't do the work. And the person that we ended up hiring, like he didn't have a degree, he didn't have any certifications, but he was like a fantastic developer who paid attention to like what was needed. He listened, he learned, he delivered. And like at Microsoft today, as we're hiring and writing job descriptions, like the overwhelming majority of roles, we are careful to say, like bachelor's degree or equivalent experience, master's degree or equivalent experience, because we want to, like, we don't want to filter out this incredible pool of talent just because they haven't gone down a specific path. Because
Mhm.
like if everybody that you're hiring looks like you, they're all going to think like you as well, and that means they're going to end up encouraging you to make the mistakes that you're going to make instead of keeping you from doing the stupid thing that a more diverse team or diverse organization would prevent. Like the monocultures are
Yep.
typically not the healthiest cultures.
Is like a small anecdote that I could on your idea of kind of hiring like yes people or similar minded individuals. It actually reminds me of the show The West Wing. There was a there's a really smart character named Ainsley who was like uh, a Republican, but the Bartlett, who was the Democratic president, specifically hired her. She was very intelligent and provided great counterpoints. And he like,
Yeah,
I didn't hire you because I want you to agree with me. I hired you because I want you to be the
yeah,
naysayer, and I want you to help me find a better version of whatever I'm looking at.
yeah,
So like conversations like that where you have point and counterpoints regardless of topic, I think helps you to
yeah.
arrive at a deeper understanding and a conclusion from it.
Yeah, and that's Like that's a fictional example, but
But yeah, yeah.
I love to see that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Uh, one of the things that I've come to realize much more in recent years is my voice carries more weight than I think that it should. Like it is bizarre to me when people quote Roche's maxim, which is like it's like simple shit that everybody knew already, and I just happened to
Yeah.
be the person that made it catchy.
Yep.
But
Yep.
because of where I am and who I am today, like people assume that I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't. And now that I run a team, like today I have a team of roughly 10 people that report to me, and I get to set the strategic direction, keep them on track. And like the hardest thing for me is making sure that everybody remembers, like, I'm asking questions to learn. I'm not questioning this because I don't agree with it. Like, I'm hoping to understand where you're going so that I can inform and guide and improve. But like, I need you, even if you work for me, I need you to tell me when I'm saying something or doing something stupid. And like, I don't see this nearly as often as I would like to. And there's a lot of people that once they have power, like you need to listen to them, but that's not a success path, at least for me.
Well, and I think to a degree, like I definitely don't manage a team nearly as big as you, but I think most people who end up in a role of responsibility start out with the like not necessarily realizing or wanting nearly as much weight behind their voice and their decisions as
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Even a degree of like, people coming up to me at conferences and like, oh my God, Reed, like one, as you've said,
Yeah.
like, please give me context of how you know me because my brain gets
Mhm.
stressed out like, oh no, have I forgotten you? And I've had those before, like, nice to meet you. Oh, we've
Yeah.
met before. And then they just cringe moment of, God, I feel
Yeah.
so uncomfortable that I've
Yeah.
forgotten you. So I usually just like, hey, nice to see you is my
Yeah.
generic response. But it's just the questions where they want to ask you an expertise, and I still feel a little anxiety every once in a while and being like the catch all expert on that. But I've at least learned over
Yeah.
the years a thing that builds a lot of trust, and it's hard to say, but it's I don't know, and that's
Yeah.
something as an instructor too that carries a lot of weight. I'd say is when you can
Yeah.
just clearly admit not something I
Yeah.
know, but I'm happy to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is one of the places where I think that starting off my career
Yep.
as a technical trainer like really served me well. Because if you are the expert at the front of the room, like you do all of the prep so that you know everything that's in the book, that's in the course, and maybe one or two adjacent rings around it. So when you get
Hmm.
questions, but you know most of the time. But that freedom to say, it's like, boy, that's a great question, I don't know. Or the ability to the ability to say, like, can you ask like a different version of the question? I don't know what you mean. Like that's like I just don't know what the hell you're talking about. Help me understand what your question is. Like these reflexes, like so many people late in their career still aren't comfortable like asking for clarity, especially from a leader, or being honest with themselves and with their peers, with their audience, if they don't know something. But it's really, really crucial. Again, like secret of my success sort of thing.
I've,
And
I've
go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say having a bit of fun with the "Where's Waldo" on the picture. I see at least few. There's Benny, there's Seth. I'm completely spacing on his name, but I have his face on the inside of my phone screen, right there. If I can, there you go. Simon, right? There's Simon. Yep, Simon's sitting to the left of Benny, right there from
Yep.
Advancing Analytics. And
Yep.
there's a few others I think I recognize, but their heads are down. Yeah.
I, I hope that Catherine, who is on the stream today, that she can spot herself there sitting next to Julie, I believe, further back. But the like I had queued this up. I hadn't expected you to share it yet, but we'll riff on this one
Sure.
for a second, because this might be a good jumping off point for some of the questions that you might have queued up. But a lot of what the a lot of what has enabled my career, like there have been 4 or 5 places that I can look back and say, this was the moment when everything changed. The commonality between those changes, those inflection points where the opportunity, the acceleration was there, it was because I was doing something that I was good at. Like I was being awesome at a thing, and someone saw me being awesome and said, like, wow, like, why don't you come be awesome for me for more money or for more whatever? And part of this is being in a place where like you're doing a thing that you're good at, like doing a good job, like always doing your best. But the other part is having somebody watching that appreciates and values it, that can open the door for you that you couldn't open or might not be able to see on your own. And the thing that I believe, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but the thing that I believe is that the only generalizable solution to this, of having people see you do great work while you're doing the great work that you're doing anyway, it's the community. And if there's one, among the things that I wish I could go back and tell younger Matthew, like past Matthew, to pay more attention to, it's engage with community earlier rather than later. Because like for me, I didn't figure this out until I was already like a decade or more into my tech career. But doing presentations, being a blogger, like having a venue and a presence where you can give the things that you are uniquely qualified to give. This is the thing that makes people say, it's like, oh, that Reed, like I love his perspective. I love his take on things. Like sure, the bald guys, like the guys in cubes who say it depends all the time, like they might have bigger numbers, but there's something about the way that Reed explains these things. He meets me where I am. Bam! Like each one of us on this unique journey, like unique background, unique perspective, unique brain, unique life, we will have something that no one else can bring. And like I see like so many faces that I value and whose content and perspectives have enriched my life. Like whether it is Chewy or Catherine or Fernando or whomever, like all y'all, the things that you bring to the community, no one else could bring those. And I would assume that a lot of the people, especially the ones who are MVP or MVP adjacent, like your blogging, your videos, your community forums answers, like you've gotten work and opportunities through that. Like this is the thing that is responsible for the quantum leaps to go from where you are to the place that you didn't even realize was there. And while you're queuing up questions, like I want to, this has reminded me of my MVP story. So this is going to tie back to a couple different, this is going to tie back to a couple different things mentioned earlier in this conversation, but thinking about working with the tools that you know and the tools that you might not know very well. But back in the 2006-2007 timeframe, I had worked on a few projects for Microsoft, helping to define what eventually became the Microsoft Certified Master certification for SQL. So I was part of a group of subject matter experts that were basically helping to define like what does a real SQL expert know? And during that project, I came into contact with a bunch of real experts, and maybe 6 months or so later, one of them emailed me And the conversation went something like this. It's like, hey, Matthew, I need I need a data architect to lead the SQL Server integration services part of my thing that I'm working on. And my response was like, no, like I'm not your person. Like, first of all, I don't really know integration services, but also like I'm really busy. And I like my consulting plate is full. I can't take on new work right
Hmm.
now. So it's like, oh, well, like I've seen you work. You can learn integration services. I want to hire you because of the problem solving approach that you bring, and like name your price. Like, what's your daily rate? And it's like, oh, no, you couldn't afford me. Blah blah blah. It's like, and at the end of the day, he's like, listen, give me your daily rate. And I quoted him 3 times what I was charging my current clients. And he's like, well,
Okay.
all right, so can you start next week? And
Nice.
so at this point, I really needed to learn integration services. Like the money part of it taken care of because
Yep.
someone saw me doing great work. I needed to learn something. And this is where the community side of things came in again. So as I'm working to understand my new clients' problems and their goals and all of these other things, I went out to the MSDN forums, which is like the early 2000s version of what the community.fabric.microsoft.com is today, right? So I would go out there and ask, it's like, I'm trying to do this thing and I can't figure out how, please help. And members of the community or sometimes members of the product team would respond. So I could move forward on my project path. But after a few weeks, I found that there were people asking questions that I could answer. So I would show up in the morning to see if anybody had answered my questions. And I started responding to the questions that I could answer that other people had asked. And A, they said thank you. B, the Microsoft people said thank you. It's like, hey, Matthew, I know that you're new here. You're like a random dude that we don't know, but thanks very much for this. Like, really appreciate your contributing. And this then turned into my first technical blog. It turned into like my turning the learning and helping others part of my personal journey into a real focus, that giving to the community, not only was it helpful in general, it gave me the ability to learn from other people's problems, challenges, and mistakes instead of only learning from my own problems, challenges, and mistakes. And it just was the gift that kept on giving. And after a year or so, I got my MVP award. So Microsoft recognized me for the contributions to the community. And like a year after that, they ended up offering me a job. So, and like
So you
a
only had an
storm,
MVP for 1 year.
only for 1 year, a storm just moved in. I'm going to turn
Yeah.
on lights because suddenly it's dark in here. I will be right back.
No worries.
There we go. Hopefully, as the thunder moves in, we won't lose power. If I disappear suddenly, I'm probably not coming back.
That works. Yeah, no worries. I do like, as you described, the ability to kind of transition and be given an opportunity to move into a new product. And I've actually done that with a few clients before. It's like, hey, like this isn't
Yep.
something that I know. I could
Yep.
find someone to staff on this for
Yep.
you, and to a degree, like so that's fine. We're also willing to like let
Yep.
you learn along the way.
Yeah.
And for people who either within their job or I guess independent consultants, one thing that I've kind of done too, for people maybe wanting to explore like contract or gig type work,
Mm-hmm.
I've been very transparent with my clients and stuff that I don't know, and to a
Yep.
degree, almost separate my own learning versus building. So you're fair on basically whatever you put down as hours. Like there's a little degree of
Yep.
probably a bit of extra time you're putting down. Maybe that it takes 10 hours of work, 7 if you knew what you're doing to a degree. So you bill for 7, even though there's about 3 extra hours
Yeah.
of that learning part. But a lot of clients are fine with that, just as long as they, the thing is delivered, and they're hiring you
Yeah.
for a degree based on your brain, not because of what's
Yes.
necessarily in your brain today. So it's
Yeah.
okay to just be honest, like I don't necessarily know that, and give them the autonomy to choose. Like, do you need an expert who can get this done in 2 weeks, or are you willing to let me learn and get this done in 4 weeks?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, the jump off from being a developer working from someone else to working for myself, like I didn't want to do it. Like this was basically one of those places where the building I was in was on fire, and jumping out of the window was the lower risk option. But when
Yeah.
I went into my client contact and basically said, it's like, look, I hate to do this, and I'll do everything that I can to ease the transition, but like I am no longer with the company that you're contracting with. Like I'm so like I'm not a member of the team anymore. And her response was basically, well, we're working with them because we want you on the team. And I had expected that I was going to go from money to money. And instead she's like, oh, well, like our lawyers will deal with them. And what we used to be paying them for the hourly rate that you got like 40% of, we'll just pay that to you. Is that okay? It's like, yes, that is
Yep.
okay. I like that.
Yeah, like it's not a bad compromise.
Yeah. So
I will
what are the
say,
questions?
yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
the only other question that I saw was something related to SSIS, and let me see if I can pull that back up. They wanted to know that what are your thoughts of like, SSIS transitioning more, and here we go, found it from Donald, transitioning into more notebook type transformations that seem more popular today.
I don't miss my high school girlfriend. Okay, full disclosure, I never had girlfriends in high school because I didn't talk to anyone, much less girls. But like I'm married now. I don't miss the people that I used to. I don't know if this is the right analogy. Like integration services was a great tool for the time. Mm-hmm. And for all I know, it may be a great tool for this time as well. But no. Like I love notebooks in Fabric. Like this is one of those things that I didn't really expect to love as much as I do. But having a code-centric data tool, whether it's PySpark or whatever in a notebook in Fabric, having the data factory pipelines as an orchestration, like control flow tool around this, having data flows which are like data flows Gen 2 are very similar to what a data flow component would be, data flow task would be in integration services. Like they're really conceptually super duper similar. And a lot of it just comes down to what's the tool that's in the context, in the execution environment that makes sense for you. As Pop Eater mentions, like integration services works great for folks that are on-prem. Like absolutely agree. That connectivity aspect of things, like connectivity is the bugbear. It's like the bane of all data projects. How do we get to the data where it is to do the things that we need to do to it, to get it into the place where we need it to be? Like that's, notebooks are great today. Data flows are great today. Integration services, it was great 15 years ago. I'm tempted to say it paid for my kids to go to college, but it probably paid for more than that.
And to a degree, like I would say, yes, there's a lot of parallels with the new stuff we have, and even to go into the Fabric conversation now, we have the pipelines that are even more robust enterprise stuff. So yeah, there's an evolution to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I used to use VBA. I was paid a lot of money to write VBA scripts.
Yes.
I will also argue that even when I wrote them, I never really enjoyed writing VBA. That's not something I had a lot of fun with because it broke so much. But digressions aside, I actually have more of a high level question, less technical, from Chewy that he brought up that I missed from earlier on. But in general, how significant has onboarding to any new job position been to anything you've ever gotten in your career, and how important could the feeling welcome into a new team?
So strategy is more important than tactics. Culture is more important than strategy. The welcome that you get when you're joining a new team, like I don't know if onboarding is a phrase that I would use here, but the thing that I believe is vitally important is having a clear shared understanding of the team's goals, the problems that you're responsible for solving, like the behaviors that are encouraged and rewarded, or the behaviors that are discouraged or punished or forbidden, the patterns of communication that work best on the team, or that are the established ways of communicating for the team. Like, this alignment with the culture of the team that you're joining is vitally important. And in my personal experience, it's always a frickin' afterthought. Like, it's always the ad hoc, oh, you'll figure things out as you go, you'll learn on the job, sort of thing. And like sometimes it's like you only really deeply learn something by doing it. And aligning with a culture, like, you learn that by being in the culture. Like if you've ever driven in the UK, for example, like, you drive on the other side of the road, and that's a thing that you can read in a book, but until you actually do it for a couple of days, you're constantly thinking about it when you're behind the wheel. Yep. And if you've ever driven in Italy, as an example, like, even though you drive on the right-hand side of the road, holy crap, like, everything is different there, and everybody's angry all the time. And if you got that type of driving in the US, like, something would be terribly wrong. You adjust to the culture as you're in it, et cetera, et cetera. And also, never drive in Italy. Like, have your local friends drive. That's the big take.
Yeah, I've driven there. I just say, it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say angry, but the driving style there is very aggressive and fast. Yeah.
Yes. And shouty.
Yeah. Yep. And then in US, you can definitely coast on the left lane. Over there, no. You can pass. Never, ever stay in the left lane.
Yeah.
I will say, as a kind of a follow-up question to this from one of my own, is that regarding, like, public speaking, or just talking or presenting, or leading a discussion among, like, team members, like, how important would you say that skill is in a career? And then also, like, how easy was it for you the first time you had to do anything that just involved multiple people that you had to kind of be an expert in? Yeah, because I'm sure people are curious about that. So yeah.
So when I was a freshman in college, I was required to take a public address class. Like you need, like, your final is you need to deliver a 5-minute talk, like, to convince your audience of something. It was the absolute worst thing. And literally every time that I had to do a presentation, I was down the hall throwing up, like, physically being ill, because I was so stressed about it.
Actually throwing up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, it was like, I hated it, and I was awful at it. And the thing that I've found from I'll talk about public communication, and then we'll circle it around to the team stuff, is that if the topic that I'm speaking on is something that gives me joy, that I'm truly interested in, like, that's my place of peace. And if I know what I'm talking about, which is key, like, you need to do the work. You can't fake it on stage.
Yeah.
Because even if you can convince your audience that you know what you're talking about, if you know that you don't, this undermines everything. So, like, if you're talking about a thing that you know, the other thing that you need to do is you need to find the story that meets your audience where they are. Having that story that hooks them, like, the pattern that I love to follow is starting off with introducing a problem to which your audience can relate, then maybe decomposing the problem, introducing the parts of the solution, and then continuing the story at the end to tie it all together. This is basically a great way to meet most communication goals. And I have, like, and I've got, like, an older blog post where this is kind of hidden. I did a talk on this at Data Cayley in Dublin last month, and I'm planning, like, when I get off my butt, I will record a video to put up on my YouTube channel. Awesome. But I've got a talk, and I'm actually gonna open up the deck for this, because it, like we're talking now. All right, so we're can I riff on this and basically do my 5-minute lightning talk?
Sure, please.
So here's Matthew talking about a thing that he believes that he knows without any prep. So like this is live, unplanned, unrehearsed. So I believe that the secret to my success in my career is not technology. It's actually understanding some effective rules of communication. And in this talk, I'm going to share with you the 5 questions that you should ask yourself to become a more effective communicator. So I'm going to skip over the me because like we're already talking about this. But these 5 questions are questions that you should ask yourself every time you're working to send an email, schedule a meeting, start a chat with someone, or deliver a presentation. And you should ask yourself, first of all, who is my audience? Like, if you don't know who you're communicating with, like what they do, what their roles are, things along these lines, why are you communicating with them in the first place? So ask yourself and answer honestly, who is the audience with whom I'm communicating? The second question is, what is my goal for communicating with this audience? If you can't be honest with yourself about what your goal is, why are you communicating with them in the first place? And by asking yourself, by being mindful about your goal for the meeting, the email, the talk, you cannot be successful achieving the goal if you can't articulate that goal clearly to yourself. The third question is, what does my audience care about in general? Like, what are their standard motivations? This is really important in a work context, because if you're trying to get someone to do something that doesn't align with their motivations, odds are you're going to fail. You need to understand their motivations from day one. Like if you're communicating with a feature PM at Microsoft, the thing they care about is shipping their features. Most other things are a lower priority for them. You need to understand, ask yourself and answer, what does your audience care about? Which then asks you or allows you to ask yourself, why will my audience care about what I'm telling them in my communication? Because if you're just randomly sharing information, like here's a bunch of stuff that I know and now you know it too, like you've all gotten those emails, right? Where it's like 50 pages long. It's like, there's no way I'm going to read that. Like you read the intro, you read like what's on the screen, and it goes into your deleted folder. So be honest with yourself. Why are they going to care about what you're sharing? And then the final question is, how will my communication motivate my audience to take action on their part to meet my goal? So you know who they are, you know what motivates them, you know what your motivations are. This 5th question, if you can honestly answer the earlier 4, it all comes together. But if you can't, this is the thing where it all falls apart. But I basically said, like, ask yourself these questions every single time you send an email, start a chat, schedule a meeting, deliver a user group or other talk. It's like, Matthew, do you really do this every time? And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. I don't always do it consciously, but just as if you're a martial artist and you practice the same move like 10,000 times, like you don't think about it anymore, right? You do it beautifully every single time because you have practiced the crap out of it. This is why it's important to do it every time. And people notice once you start practicing. The thing that you will find is that your communication starts to be more focused, more clear, more concise, shorter, and more impactful. More people will read a short email than will read a long one. And the more that you know about the audience that you're communicating with, and the more that you are honest about your own goals and motivations for each communication, this is the proven battlefield success strategy. Like this is a thing that works in every single context. Be honest with yourself, be honest about what you're trying to do, be honest about the audience that you're trying to reach. This is what makes the difference. So there we go. I'll have a more refined talk track when I do it, when I do it for real. But the thing that I find when working with a team, whether it's my team where I'm the boss, I get to tell you what to do, or where it's a team where I need to influence without authority, which is a key characteristic of being a program manager, like wherever you work. The most important thing for me is building a shared understanding of the goals that we're working to achieve, the problem that we're trying to solve. Let's get clarity on the thing that we're trying to do before we lean in to come up with all of the detailed technical parts of the solution. Because if we only agree on the solution and we don't agree on the problem, like the solution is not going to solve the problem. And even if we build exactly what we plan to build, it's not going to be what we needed. Where we built a screwdriver when there's a pile of nails that need to get driven.
Square peg, round hole scenario.
Exactly.
I do like the Bruce Lee quote. Like, I mean, I think I've never met a single presenter or anybody else who is good, quote unquote, at public speaking who's like, oh yeah, the first time I went on stage, it was great. Like, I mean, I've seen people commenting in the chat about, having to pace around for 20 minutes. Somebody passed out during their presentation. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there who's literally thrown up in the middle of a talk where they had a trash can and they just, their body could not handle it. But I mean, evolutionarily, like, we are I would almost say like biologically wired to like not enjoy 1,000 eyeballs staring at us. That is an uncomfortable feeling, and you have to get used to it. And I would also say like a small amount of anxiety keeps us honest. Like if I never wanted to get to the point where I feel like I can just knock every single presentation out of the park, because I would get lazy and I would stop planning and preparing and trying to refine it. I'd just simply walk onto the stage, narcissistically, and just feel like I can just rock the world. So I still have a teeny little bit of that, like, small voice in the back of my head, telling me to like, hey, make sure you don't screw this up. And make sure that I check my decks, that I make sure that Murphy's Law doesn't happen. So I go through everything to review to myself and prep me. And I think that's pretty common for anybody who walks onto the stage confidently. We all have different degrees of anxiety that's inside of us, when we're on that stage, but we, also roll through it and make sure that we can deliver and engage with the audience.
Yeah, and that thing that you said about like when that voice of anxiety goes away, that's the danger sign, because that's when you're getting lazy. Like, speaking from personal experience, when you find yourself getting lazy and taking it for granted, you're going to mess up, and that's going to be the big slap in the face, and you won't do it again, or at least not for a long time. My mental model for presentation is skydiving. So the place where you really lean in, if you're going to jump out an airplane, is like making sure your freaking parachute is going to work, right? So it's all about the safety and the prep and the things that you do before you jump, because once you jump, you are committed. Like there's nothing that you can do once you're out of the plane that isn't enabled 100% by all the work that you put in before you jumped. And that's the same thing with walking out on the stage. Like for me these days, every time that I'm doing a talk, like especially a new one, or like new audience, new topic, new technology, whatever, I am like, I have a long preparatory process. I won't drain that topic, but like, I am reviewing my slides, like I am in the room before the previous speaker is done, like I'm at the podium, like as soon as I can kick those people off the stage, like, go answer your question somewhere else.
Exactly.
And like all of these things, to be in the place, to get in the moment, to do, like, to double check my shoot, as it were. And by building those preparatory practices, this gives me the confidence that once the talk starts, because I've done the work, I am almost never stressed while I'm on the stage with an audience, because I have like bled all of that stress or forged it into my armor before the audience showed up, or before the clock ticked over.
Exactly. The whatever routine, mental, physical routine you have before walking onto that stage, and everybody has their own, but that becomes the muscle memory that you build up. But it takes a lot of time to do that, for sure. And I think it's good for everyone in the audience to hear that. I continue to remind about that. None of us go on day one knowing what we're doing, and even years later, we
Yeah.
still don't entirely know what we're
Yeah.
doing, but we get better at it. It's
Yeah.
very iterative. It is slowly polishing a rock down with a very small chisel.
Yeah. And I'm going to use that as my jumping off point.
Yes.
Most of the things that are challenging to me today are things that I couldn't do, like from a career perspective. They're things that I couldn't have done 3 or 4 years ago. And most of them are sadly related to people management. Like, this is my area of personal growth. And most of the things that I used to believe like set me apart, like this is my unique value proposition. Like, I need to make it so that these things that needed my artisan approach a couple years ago, now they can become a commodity delivered at a broader scale by a broader team. I need to learn to let go of the details and let other people bring their own take to things. But the things that you're awesome at today, the way that you keep growing, it's not by like doing that one thing super duper better. Or at least for me, it has not been that thing. It has been like acknowledging the strengths that you have in an area, while being pushed into allowing yourself to be directed into a place where you are weak but need to develop strength to succeed.
And I think that's a great takeaway for this as well. And I've honestly, everything that we've had a conversation on today has been fantastic. I think the dives at both the 30,000, the 10,000, and the 5-foot level has been really interesting across both the career to lead up to this point. A lot of the diverging paths that end up leading to whatever the I wouldn't, and there's never a finish line, but there's checkpoints along the way that you end up hitting. And sometimes you realize there was a checkpoint once you're looking behind you, not necessarily in front of you. But I think there in general, just with life and career, there's a lot of unknowns that I think are okay to acknowledge. And all of us that look like we know what we're doing, we hit those every step of the way. Oh, it's really what you do after you hit one of them. And it's the biggest to me factors with success is continuing to move forward with any speed bump rather than stopping. Like, it's the Mark Twain. No, was it Benjamin Franklin with the light bulb? I think, right, with the you make 999 wrong ones before you make the right one, to a degree as you go through that. So the failures define success. Success doesn't define failure to a degree. So I've appreciated. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and
Edison,
you always learn more from your failures than you learn from your successes. Like, if you're honest with yourself to acknowledge the role that you've played in a failure, like, this is where the real growth comes from. As long as you don't only blame others and external factors, there's like, you learn the most from the things that you do wrong the first time. Maybe that's why I have gotten to this place of relative success, because I've done so many stupid things and made so many mistakes for so many years.
Yes, and the more mistakes you make, the more you can learn from them, and the more you can grow from that. So absolutely. Like, the last takeaway is that there's a quote somewhere, I don't want a CEO who's had nothing but success in their life, because they don't know how to fail. I want the person who's failed repeatedly but gotten back up, because that builds resilience, and that is one of the biggest factors is tenaciousness and resilience to have. So with that, though, I think this, as you said, good jumping off point. I appreciate you coming on for this. This has been a fun talk as always. I think we always have we often have really good conversations with any of the live streams that we do, besides just the demos and the talks. Our first was data flows. I forget what our second one was, but I know this is your third time on at this point, and each time they're new and novel for sure. So will be happy and looking forward to the next time I can get you back on as well, and to the stream in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Reed, for having me. Thanks to everyone who stuck around, and we'll go see if the basement is flooding once we're off the call. I don't know if you can hear the rain, but boy, Syracuse is getting pounded. So we'll figure it out. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.